it's a chatty one. Okay, so this is a series of courses called Designing the Cultural Commons. I also, these are the PG certificate and the PG diploma courses. Until this year, I did have master's program as well. However, we just felt like it, with the PG cert and the PG dip courses, the MA slightly became redundant because people were taking these and were going straight either into an MPhil, which is half a PhD, or a full-on PhD. So this MA kind of just got lost in the middle, whereas students can definitely use the credits from the PG cert and the PG dip and go into any of our other masters within the university, whether that's in art, design, governance, you know, anywhere, and you get refunded that bit from the MA. So it can kind of have lots of trajectories, which we thought was actually much more interesting, because you could then specialize in other things that has come out of this PG cert and the PG dip. I just tell you a little bit. I kind of understood the scale of the Commons when I attended the European Commons Assembly in Brussels, at the Parliament, at the European Parliament, and realized that there were a huge number of organizations that were developing commons-based initiatives, organizations, and practices. And commons, you know, sounds really odd and sounds really like abstract, but actually all it means is that it is a form of organization which is community orientated or socially interested. So it's like a social enterprise. It wants to make political and social change to create more social equality. It is interested in the things that we produce to be common good rather than private good, which I talk about at the moment again in a minute, and that it kind of starts to think about organizations as beautiful organizations which are about care and horizontal power relationships and so on. So in terms of mental health and all of that, they just become really quite beautiful organizations that are really really current in a way in all the things that we're talking about planetary care, social care, and ethics. So there is also lots of organizations that support commons practices, such as the International Association for the Study of the Commons, and they do a lot of networking, virtual conferences or conferences generally, that you get to meet all these other people who are doing similar work. And just really quickly, this is a really useful diagram I use quite a lot in terms of the kind of goods as practitioners or organizations that we produce, but we never ever directly think about are what kind of goods is it that we are producing. Are we producing private goods? Are we producing common goods? Or are we producing public good, or a bit of everything? But if we're not really on top of what it is that we're producing, we then start to reproduce very unfair, extractive, unethical things, if you like, without really thinking how we can actually contribute to the common good. So private good is primarily what is traded in the market. Common good is what is basically produced for benefit, for social benefit within communities and within kind of organizations that have a set boundary of who those communities are. And public good is more things that are produced by the public sector, which is for a crowd, for the public in general. And it might be that we develop organizations that move across all of these things and move across all of these kind of goods. but they are holistically designed and holistically developed, so you don't have one that dominates the other. And that's something we do in the course quite a lot, and discuss quite a lot. Now, about the course, so maybe because I'm a designer, I really thought about the course as a project rather than just a course. So, so the PG DIP and the PG certificate courses, which run a year, they're only 1 day a week. So you can work the rest of the time. And we try and do everything in those 1 day a week. So you might be super excited and read stuff that I can give you references to outside, but ultimately to get through the course, you only need that 1 day a week for both of those courses. The PG DIP means you just have a very long day until 8 o'clock at night, from 10 a.m. to 8 o'clock at night. So it's quite intense. The PG cert ends at 5 o'clock. So that's been designed so as in a way for you to be able to work and have a life. And we have these partnerships with the Design Museum with both of those courses. The Tate partnership is with the PG DIP. And we have a partnership with Agile City as well, which are based in Glasgow. And basically what it predominantly you produce, you can have your own existing practice that you want to reframe, redevelop, kind of think through in terms of its development, or you can come up with new idea of a new business, a new organization, or you can develop a research proposal to do further studies in terms of an MA, PhD, or an MPhil. Whatever route you take or whatever of those you do, what we talk about quite a lot is these idea of beautiful organizations. And so if you think about beauty as something that gives you joy and happiness, that makes you feel good, then these are beautiful organizations that actually not only for you as a person who's working in that situation, you want to be less stressed and feel joy and excitement, which is really what honestly I have been feeling since I set up both my courses and my organization 20 years ago. And it's really fulfilling, but also the people who are working with you, your collaborators. Another thing that I'll talk about in the next slide is that we, all of the alumni from the course, join the Cultural Commons Guild, which becomes a peer-to-peer alumni association almost, that all the students support each other basically, and I come in 3 times a year to see how everyone is doing, where people might need support, what they're developing, how I can help with my networks, what opportunities I can make available for students. And it's basically a really caring, supporting environment post your studies. So you know, that idea of ethics of care continuing through in everything that we are talking about. And so the Alumni Cultural Commons Guild, I call it a guild, it's a constituted organization. The governance of it is going to be all its members, our alumni. So we actively discuss, I don't know what that note is, but anyway, we can actively discuss how the organization should develop and so on. So we have peer-to-peer mentoring, we have placements. So it could be that as your organizations grow and you're part of the guild, we have new students that we can place into your organizations that supports both. Quarterly show and tell, future cultural commons, you can become teachers in our programs or developing courses together with us as a university. So these are the modules. So at the moment in the postgraduate certificate course, which is 60 credits, we have 2 modules. The history and theory of commons, but it says history and theory of commons, but mainly what we'll be mapping and identifying the common goods within your practices. What is it that you've been producing? What is it that you would want to produce? How does that look like? How do you produce it? That could be stuff, or it can be services. The common good you're working with and you don't even know about. So those are the conversations and dialogues that we would have. The common good institutions that you can partner with, that again, you might be already doing, you don't know about it, or that we can recommend that you partner with. And the commoning practice, that's where you really develop your business and you develop your organization or a program or whatever it is. It's very tailor-made to you and your needs as an organization. But we really talk about, and I'll talk about that in the next few slides, about, you know, governance structures, business plans, how you raise funds, website, you know, all of those things. And then, and it's in partnership with the Design Museum. So you also do a presentation of your organization at the Design Museum to really launch, in a way, your practice. With the diploma, you have both of those, but additionally, you have the Commons project. So this is different to the practice, and a lot of people, and this is why we just, it's not out there that organizations have an aesthetic, that organizations have a design, and organizations are objects in themselves away from projects. So a lot of the time people just think if they have a legal framework and a bank account, they are an organization, but that's not how you, that is not how you design an organization as an entity and a project itself. So the Commons project, it's more the project. So that could be, I don't know, a building, it could be a community garden, it could be objects, it could be furniture, it could be, I don't know, a system, it could be anything, but it's a project or a service that you will be developing or delivering through your organization. And that's in partnership with the Tate Modern. So you'll be doing an exhibition of a project at the Tate Modern in Tate Exchange. This is kind of just showing you as part of the first module, the common good, the history and theory. As you see, there are lectures. So every session starts with an hour lecture, which really brings in theory. It brings in, but they're always connected to practice. And in the afternoons, we do workshops where we do mappings or discussions or cartographies and so on. And then an exercise that we do, this is one of the students mapping of the kind of her practice in a way together with the common goods in terms of, I mean, it looks really complex, but I think that's just the way she's done it. There are also people who've just done it by hand, or, you know, you can do it however, it doesn't have to look so neat like that. But she's also quite a mature student, so she's been around for a long time. But you know, for example, we've had students who have mapped that actually their common good is language of care, some that it's been noise, urban noise. Other people have looked at it in terms of this student where it was just common communal spaces in housing estates. We had another student that had music as a common good. We had another student who looked at fiber as a common good. So it really is depending on your interdisciplinary practice, what those things are. But we do that a lot through a lot of conversation, through a lot of the lectures that happen. You start to understand about materiality and objects and things like that to really develop that. Then we have the practice module. Again, the same model, it's in the afternoon. We have an hour lecture, so models of collaboration, how you facilitate, what's the difference between individualism and collectivism, forms of practice, membership to your organization, governance models, fundraising, intellectual property, forms of learning and education in your practices, relations of ethics, and so on, and how do you develop websites, how do you communicate marketing wise. So there's lots of lectures like that, and then in the after the lectures, we're really you're really there developing and creating your practices, and it is really, really exciting. And so your what you hand in for that module, as you see, it's basically a digital platform, which can be a website or a Facebook or whatever, a practice pitch to practitioners, and also, you know, your whole completed design of the organization. So one example, so this is Little Black Pants Club by one of our students. Tell me if you can see a website now, or do I have to stop? Can you see a website? No. Okay, I have to stop sharing and share again. Sorry, I just want to show you this very quickly, because can you see this, the website? Yes. And I'm not going to go through it too much, but I think it's more the fact that, you know, she's a fashion designer, and she really developed all these kind of classes as part of her practice that, again, is generating income, but it's all about ethical fashion. It's all about creating bespoke rather than like extractive labor. It's all about using the materials that you can literally put in the bin and it will compost, because it's fibers from natural environment. It's you know, how you design the labor aspect of it, and it's really, really beautiful in that sense that it is very, very ethically developed. And in a way, with her, she basically sees everybody within her organization as a community that she's developing kind of carefully. There's membership, you can't just go and buy, you become a member, you become part of that community, and so on. So that's on the Design Museum with the project right now. So these are all the students who'll be presenting, like we discussed. And then the project module, again, we have lectures and then workshops in terms of developing a project. Now, just very quickly, back at Alice again with the fashion. So she's been developing the project, collaborating with all these people in Brixton in terms of, you know, where one could develop dye gardens and sewing workshop with Brixton Windmill, Fabric Harvest Festival, where you kind of harvest the fibers, the synthetic fibers, in order to really have recycling properly. This is the reason why you can't have recycled material, because of all the different fibers. The tailor cooperatives that she's talking to other local makers, local mill, and so on. So so this is a 5-year project, which is, I've supported her to basically talk to the GLA in terms of developing a Lambeth common mill. So it could be something as big as that, or as big as, this is project by Neil in Hackney Wick, where he's developing a space for artists. It's called the Hackney Wick Underground, with kind of markets and shows and exhibitions and a bakery and so on. And so it can be as big as these, or as small as a kind of community project, which is just about foraging, which is another student, Lily Hume, who's been doing, and she wants to start very, very slowly, not as big as these more experienced students. So it really depends on your level of, we're done with the presentation. It really depends on your level of